Or how about hating the Confederacy? Because that preceded ICE. How about hating Nazis? Did Michael Knowles do a segment? Because like the United States fought the Nazis in World War II. That's one thing about Americanism that I'm okay with being proud of and owning. We're supposed to hate Nazis in this country. What does he have to say about Elon? Is that American? Or is it just the targeting of indigenous people or Japanese people or other?
Democrats and progressive leftists everywhere seem to be triggered over the mass deportations that have been happening since Trump has become president. And Emma Vigeland right here is one of them. Here she is getting triggered by conservative Michael Knowles, who gives his thoughts on the whole thing. She doesn't like it. She cries about it. Let's all watch together.
To a different country.
You can't hit his numbers for thousands a day without going after people who aren't violent criminals.
There is like almost no pretense on that front. The deportation of criminals was the Obama administration era policy, and that's not what this is going to be. And so anyway, Michael Knowles and the rest of the right, they're really enjoying all the cruelty that they're seeing. And here is his explanation.
The cruelty that they're seeing. Being sent back to your own country is cruel now. Well, what are you trying to say about their own countries, huh? You know, on one hand, Mexico isn't an S-hole country, but it's cruel to send them back there. Make up your mind.
For why this is actually a very patriotic move.
You might argue that mass migration or mass deportation rather, is wrong. That's what Democrats are arguing. And there are even some libertarians and right-wingers who argue that mass deportations are wrong. Mm-hmm. The one thing you can't argue is that mass deportation is un-American. I don't know if you guys are history buffs or not. Have you ever heard of the Trail of Tears? I know a lot of people don't defend the Trail of Tears. But that was a mass deportation. That was in, 1830? Have you ever heard of Operation Wetback, when we actually deported a ton of Mexicans, like 100,000 or more Mexicans?
Too bad.
You might not defend Operation Wetback, in part because of the name, because it's an offensive word. 1954. That was a mass deportation. How about the Palmer raids of all the communists, 1919, 1920?
Yeah, horrible.
Deported, because a lot of the communists were foreigners who were in America, deported lots and lots of communists, rather.
Commoners.
How about the Japanese? We always talk about Japanese internment during World War II. You know, we also deported a lot of Japanese. Again, you might say, well, that was all really terrible. Okay, but it's American, though. We sure did it. I'm noticing a trend here, huh? How about the Haitians and the Cubans that we deported after the Mariel boat lift in 1980? That was a mass deportation. You say, well, that's wrong. It's anti-American. Again, I know maybe you don't like it.
Okay.
Maybe you can make an argument that...
Maybe you can... So he's not making a value judgment. He's just not. He's just saying, hey, you could say it's wrong, but you can't say it's anti-American. And if you say it's wrong, are you anti-American? Because he's exactly right. Those policies were implemented by this country, the Trail of Tears.
A settler colonial state.
Japanese internment. These were wrong, horrible things that we did. But he doesn't really want you to make a value judgment on that, because if you do, you're against America. And I'm reminded
I can make a value judgment. He doesn't want to make his own, apparently, which is kind of pussy.
But I mean, he is by not saying it, by saying that one side says it's wrong and then the other side loves America. That's the distinction that he's drawing. But I'm reminded of what we just talked about with Hano.
You know, I might be wrong, but I didn't get that interpretation from what Michael Knowles is saying. I think Michael Knowles' point was that it's not the first time this has been done in America. We've done it before. That's the impression that I was getting. I wasn't getting the impression that he was trying to say if you're against it, then you're anti-American. I mean, I guess one could make the leap, because after all, like, why do you care more about what people who are here illegally, who are taking advantage of the system illegally, who are also being used here as cheap labor and stuff? Like, why? It's like, why are you crying more for the people who are being sent back to the countries more than the people who live here, who have been hurt by the people, a lot of the people coming here? I guess you can make that leap. But just from what Michael Knowles said right there, I didn't get that. How about you guys? Sound off in the comment section below. Let's continue.
With Elon Musk speaking to the German AfD party, selling this idea that you can absolve yourself and not have to worry about the shame of like past atrocities that your nation has committed. and you can just renew your patriotism by finding new groups to demonize.
You know what's also American is celebrating Custer getting whacked in the West, as some Americans did, thinking he had it coming. King Philip, one of the leaders, a name that we gave a Native American leader, later attacked, had fans among Americans. Like, that's also a countervailing force in America. But that's the thing is, like, fine, you can say these are American things. I think that's rather important, actually, to say that, because I think we do get focused too much on the Nazi and, you know, Hitler, and that's basically transferring this across the Atlantic. We have a huge problem here in America that isn't Nazi related. It is America, settler colonial, white supremacist related. And yeah, all those things I have no problem saying, both American and bad.
Yes.
If you want to say the Trail of Tears was good, just say it with your chest. That's what bothers me. Like, it's one thing to say between the lines. Say it with your chest, you pussies.
Right. He and the reality is that Trail of Tears, we just saw a version of the Trail of Tears just starting in October 2023 in Gaza. That was an ethnic cleansing campaign in the same way that our the Trail of Tears and our treatment of the indigenous Americans here was ethnic cleansing. So
racial, like, that's not what's going on here. We're kicking people who are in our country here illegally back out of the country, which, by the way, doesn't even seem like they appreciate our country at all. I mean, you see protests of this deportation, and they're all waving Mexican flags. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why are you waving the flag of the country that you don't want to get sent back to? Why are you here waving the flag of another country? If you love this country so much, if you really don't want to get kicked out, shouldn't you be waving the American flag, the country that you supposedly love so much? Like, what sense does that make? So they're here, and it doesn't even seem like they love this country. It doesn't seem like they want to integrate themselves into our culture, which is what makes legal migration different, because the ones who migrate here legally, you know, they have to go through they have to learn about our history. They go through the process of learning our language. They integrate into our culture. But the illegal ones, they don't. They want to take advantage of our way of life, advantage of our culture, take advantage of the fact that we're not an S-hole country. It's like they want to take all of the good things that our country has to offer while still celebrating the S-hole country that they left. So I don't feel bad for any of these people. To compare this to the Trail of Tears is ridiculous. What do you guys think? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you're enjoying this clip. Let's continue.
He's trying to essentially say, without saying, that these things were good and necessary for the construction of America, which is a counterfactual, but it's a very easy way to absolve yourself of bringing history into our current context.
That was a mass deportation. You say, well, that's wrong. It's anti-American. Again, I know maybe you don't like it. Maybe you can make an argument that some of these things were unjust. But the one thing you can't say is that it's un-American.
No one's
or
arguing
anti-American. Mass deportation is as American as apple pie. Okay, we've been doing it for a very, very long time.
So is birthright citizenship.
And frankly, if you want to argue that these things...
Great point. Birthright citizenship. Yeah, it's been in place, the 14th Amendment, since right after the Civil War. That's pretty American. That's a long time.
You know what's not super American that hasn't been around for this long, but mainly around like people's lifetimes, is this insane boondoggle of government spending for security at the border that doesn't actually accomplish what it says it does, because it's impossible to close that border entirely.
You know what's older than ICE is birthright citizenship. Which one's more American?
Exactly.
Is there compounding interest on Americanism for birthright citizenship?
Wow. More complaining. I could see why they would make that leap to where, well, if you don't like this, then you don't like America. Because you would have to hate this country in order to just want to allow everyone in and to cry when you're kicking all the bad people out. The people that aren't legal, that clearly don't love our country, out. He makes the case, well, it's impossible to completely close the border. And yeah, there's always going to be people to find ways to cross here illegally. But that doesn't mean you should just leave the door wide open.
Or how about hating the Confederacy? Because that preceded ICE. How about hating Nazis? Did Michael Knowles do a segment? Because like the United States fought the Nazis in World War II. That's one thing about Americanism that I'm okay with being proud of and owning. We're supposed to hate Nazis in this country. What does he have to say about Elon? Is that American? Or is it just the targeting of indigenous people or Japanese people or other minorities? Is that what's American to Knowles?
Tim Holquin in the chat. So is slavery. Yeah. And guess what? We fought a war and put that away. At least chattel slavery. There's still some, bonded labor. But
now do the use of illegals as cheap labor. Now do that one. Now do how all these people who are here illegal are getting taken advantage of by corporations and businesses for cheap labor.
The thing about American Pie is like when things are like American Pie, also good.
Yeah. Right.
They're not really controversial. The things that are controversial, I don't know if as an American, I am comfortable. And somebody who's like, unlike Daily Wire folks taking money probably from foreign billionaires, I'll probably say, or billionaires not born in this country. I'm an American. I think those things that like birthright citizenship and our fight against slavery and the way that Americans joined up to not only fight fascism in World War II, but also fight Franco and the Catholic fascism of Spain prior to that. That stuff that's the American shit I like.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say what it is I like. Unlike Michael Knowles and everybody who watches Michael Knowles things, I'll say what I like and what I don't like about this. I'm not just going to say, well, it's American. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I pair my apple pie with anti-Confederacy. He pairs it with, ethnic cleansing, I guess.
I bet if we had deported everyone who fought for the Confederacy out of this country, I'm pretty sure Emma Vigeland would have no problem with that. I mean, after all, they're traitors to their own country, So I'm pretty sure if we had done that, if we had deported all the Confederates out of here, they would have no issue with that. They would say that's a good thing. So why can't we do that to people who don't belong here? And by people who don't belong here, I mean the people who are here illegally, who don't love this country.
Mass deportation is as American as apple pie. Okay, we've been doing it for a very, very long time. And frankly, if you want to argue that these things were deeply un-American, I would encourage you to look into the details of them, to put yourself in the historical positions of the people making decisions at that time. And I wonder if you wouldn't make the same decision.
No, we know you would. We know you would.
Don't seriously
we know you would. We know you would make that same decision. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I don't want to have to, I love when they drop the pretense, because all of these freaks, Michael Knowles is a true believer, and these other Daily Wire, I would imagine that Matt Walsh would make the same case, and probably does behind closed doors, which is that they're tired of the judgment by people on past very intelligent white men who had to make the tough decisions about which minority groups to persecute and slaughter or whatever. And if they were in the same position, they know that they would have made that choice, because they have just modernized their reactionary racism for the current political moment. Whereas the left tries to learn from our past from our past horrific treatment of people, the right tries to return to those same conditions. So that's the thing about the Holocaust in particular, too, when it's deployed in this country by conservatives. If you guys were in existence when the Holocaust was happening, if you were alive then, you would have been on the side of people telling the American government to turn away the boats of Jews who were fleeing the Holocaust, because you would say that it would change the culture of America, and that of course Germany doesn't want these people, in the same way that they talk about immigrants from the global south, and of course from places where we've displaced so many people, like in Afghanistan, and because of our war there, or with the genocide that we support in Palestine. That's when they make that same argument. And so it's almost revealing here that he doesn't go with the Holocaust, because that's a bridge too far, too, and it might piss off his boss at the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro. But that they basically place themselves in those positions of power, in those decision-making processes, and they know which side they would have been on interest.
So this show is trash. And I mean, it's easy to say that. It might seem like I'm just like, oh, well, duh, yeah, no crap, it's trash. No, but it's really trash. Like, I think there are better left-leaning shows out there. I think The Young Turks is a better left-leaning show than the Majority Report here. All her arguments are just nothing but lefty, lefty, lefty. I'm a progressive lefty, 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 lefty. That's all I hear. Right-wing terrible, right-wing racist, right-wing awful, right-wing bigots. Same thing we've been hearing since ever. But it's funny because they say like, well, the right-wingers, they would have been on this side of the Nazi war and stuff. The left wing, they always try to pretend that they're better people. We try to learn from the atrocities. No, you don't. You didn't learn from the atrocities. It showed it during COVID when you were advocating to forcing people to taking a jab against their will in order to keep their jobs, in order to go to concerts, in order to go to any public place. You are down for the censorship of dissident voices. You were pro selling out your own father if they participated in something such as January 6th. These were all things that were prevalent in communism and even during evil German man's Germany. So get off your high horse, stop sniffing your own farts for a second, and come back down to reality. To be honest, I don't think this was Michael Knowles' best argument. He's a pretty smart guy. He's usually better at articulating his points. But I do understand his underlying point. Mass deportations are nothing new. And you know what? If maybe we didn't do it back in those times, as awful as it was, as bad as it was, as ugly it might be, or it might appear, and how we look back and go, oh, that was awful. Maybe we wouldn't have to have the great country that we had today without them. You know, the great country that everyone wants to come to, the great country that you constantly want to sell to everyone else except its own citizens. So think about that. But what did you guys think about what Emma Vigeland said today? Did you agree with her? Did you disagree with her? Sound off in the comment section below. Smash that like button. Subscribe to my channel. You'll be helping me out a lot. If you want to see more lefty lunacy, I got more goodies and playlists for you on the screen to click away and enjoy.